I started working the night shift at a gas station because I needed some extra money. The job wasn't too difficult, just handling late-night customers and keeping an eye on the place. Most nights were quiet, and the few customers I had were usually travelers stopping by for gas or snacks. After a few months, though, one man started coming in regularly. He would show up around 2 a.m., always buying a can of beer and leaving without saying much. He was tall, had long, greasy hair, and wore an old jacket. He never got gas, just alcohol. At first, I didn't pay much attention to him, but after a while, he started talking to me. One night, he asked my name. I told him, and he just kept repeating it to himself while laughing softly. He cracked open the beer he bought, muttering something under his breath as he walked out of the store. I was curious. I wondered if he had been drinking and driving, but I never saw him get into a car. Instead, he always walked away, disappearing into the dark. After that, he came in almost every night. Sometimes he was drunker than usual, barely able to stand as he leaned against the shelves. He'd greet me with the same line, saying my name like he was amused by it. One night, after he had been particularly quiet, just standing and staring at a wall, I asked for his name. It took him a few seconds to answer. He said, "Bob." I couldn't help but feel like it was a fake name. Something about the way he said it made me suspicious, but I didn't push him. The nights went on, and Bob kept showing up. Each time, he seemed a little more off than before. One stormy night, fewer customers came in because of the rain. I heard the door ding, and somehow, I knew it would be him. But this time, something was different. He wasn't just drunk, he was soaked to the bone, rain dripping from his clothes, his hair plastered to his face. He stood by the door, staring straight ahead like his mind was somewhere else. "Are you okay?" I asked, trying to sound calm. He didn't move or respond at first, just stood there staring. Then, in a low voice, he said, "I did something really bad." A chill ran down my spine. I asked him what he did, but instead of answering, he said, "I need somewhere to hide." Without waiting for my response, he walked past me and disappeared into the hallway where the restrooms and storage room were. Something was really wrong. I felt uneasy whenever he was around, but tonight was different, worse. That line, "I did something really bad," echoed in my head. Minutes passed, but he didn't come back out. I started to think he might have passed out in the bathroom. Then, the lights suddenly went out. The entire gas station plunged into darkness, except for the faint light from the storm outside. My heart was pounding. I grabbed a flashlight from under the counter and made my way toward the storage room, where I thought he might be. The hallway was dark and eerily silent. I called out, but there was no answer. As I passed by the restroom doors, both were open, and he wasn't inside. My stomach dropped. I heard a faint dripping noise and the squeaking of wet shoes in the storage room. Shining my flashlight into the corner, I finally saw him, his eyes wide open, staring at me. Before I could react, he lunged at me, screaming, "I'm going to kill you." I shoved him off and ran toward the front of the store. He didn't follow. I grabbed my jacket, ran outside, and jumped into my car, frantically dialing 911. I stayed on the line with the operator until 2 police officers arrived. We went back inside together, and they found him huddled in the storage room, his eyes wild. He was in some kind of drugged-up state, muttering to himself. They arrested him after I told them what happened. A few weeks later, I found out the man's real name wasn't Bob. He had killed his ex-wife the night he came into the gas station, beaten her to death in a fit of rage. After that night, I never wanted to work another night shift again. It was a rainy Friday night, and I was getting ready to drive home. The sky had long turned dark, and there were few cars on the road. As I drove down the highway, The fuel gauge showed I was running low on gas. I decided to stop at a nearby gas station, one I rarely visited because it was in a rather remote area, surrounded by woods and empty land. I pulled into the station and parked by a pump near the entrance. The gas station was eerily quiet, with almost no other vehicles around. The lights were dim and flickering, and the small shop inside was brightly lit, but empty. I stepped out of my car, feeling the light drizzle on my face, and walked to the pump to try the self-service machine. However, it displayed an error message, indicating it was out of order. Left with no other option, I decided to go inside and ask for help. As I pushed open the door, a strange, musty smell hit me. The shelves inside were sparsely stocked, and it seemed like no one had organized them in a long time. Behind the counter stood a man with a tired expression, wearing a wrinkled work uniform. He stared at me as I walked in, his voice cold and detached when he asked, "What do you need?" "The self-service pump isn't working. I'd like to fill up," I replied. He said nothing in response, merely walking out from behind the counter and signaling for me to follow him to the pump. His movements were stiff and slow, giving off an odd vibe. I followed, feeling a subtle sense of unease, but I didn't think too much of it at the time. As he prepared to pump the gas, I noticed him glancing around nervously, as if he was on high alert. The atmosphere became even more unsettling. I stood by the car, waiting, but suddenly I heard a low, distant noise like the sound of footsteps. Instinctively, I turned toward the source of the noise, which seemed to be coming from the dark area behind the gas station, where the lights didn't reach. I could barely make out vague, shifting shapes. My heart raced as I turned back to the man, whose face had gone pale. He was muttering something under his breath, but I couldn't make out what he was saying. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. He didn't respond, just quickly put down the pump and whispered, "You'd better leave. Don't stay here any longer." I stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do, but before I could ask him why, he rushed back into the store and locked the door behind him. A chill ran down my spine, and I quickly got back into my car and started the engine. As I drove away, I glanced into the rearview mirror. In the dim light, I saw several shadowy figures emerging from the dark area behind the gas station. They moved quickly, all dressed in dark clothing, their faces hidden. It was as if they were searching for something or someone. I didn't dare look back again. My heart was pounding as I hit the gas and sped away from the eerie scene. Later, I heard that the gas station had been shut down just a few days after that night, with no explanation as to why. Maybe what I experienced was just a strange, unsettling encounter, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had narrowly avoided something far more dangerous. It felt like, on that rainy night, I had escaped a disaster I couldn't quite comprehend. I was driving alone late at night, just passing through a quiet road, when I had to stop for gas. The gas station I found was desolate, sitting under the dim glow of a neon sign, surrounded by nothing but darkness. I pulled up to one of the pumps and parked. Inside the small convenience store, a tired-looking cashier sat behind the counter, distracted by his phone. The shelves were dusty and sparse, and the place felt eerie under the dim lighting. After paying for gas, I was about to head back to my car when I noticed a man standing nearby, right by the gas pump next to mine. He wasn't getting gas, just standing there, watching me. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I kept walking towards my car, trying to ignore him. As I began pumping gas, I could feel his eyes on me. His presence was unsettling. He was getting closer, creeping around the pump, as if trying to approach without being noticed. Suddenly, he asked, "Are you alone?" My heart pounded as I replied, "No, my boyfriend is in the car." I quickly grabbed the pepper spray from the center console, trying to hide my nervousness. The man stepped closer, clearly not convinced by my answer. He muttered something under his breath, then started circling my car, inching towards the driver's side. I lifted the pepper spray, pointing it at him, and he stopped. He laughed, a low, chilling sound, and backed off, claiming he was just trying to talk. I finished filling my gas tank, but I still had change to collect inside the store. The man was now standing between me and the shop entrance, watching my every move. I had no choice but to go back inside to get my change. I kept my pepper spray ready, eyes locked on the man as I slowly walked back to the shop. Inside, I told the cashier that the man was making me uncomfortable, but the cashier seemed unfazed or unable to understand. After collecting my change, I hesitated before leaving the store. I peered through the glass door, scanning the parking lot. The man was nowhere in sight. Reluctantly, I stepped outside. I stood on the small sidewalk in front of the shop, my eyes darting around for any sign of him. The eerie silence felt suffocating. Then, a pickup truck pulled into the gas station, and a large man stepped out. Desperate, I asked him for help, explaining that someone was hiding near my car. The man looked at me, confused, but walked over to check behind my vehicle. Suddenly, he shouted, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I saw the creepy man sprinting away into the darkness, disappearing into the night. Shaken, I quickly got into my car and drove away. That man had been waiting, probably to ambush me when I unlocked the door. The thought of what could have happened still haunts me.